Welcome to the BEA YA Editors Buzz Panel. I'm Susanna Hermans from Oblong Books and Music in Rhinebeck and Millerton, New York. Thank you. I'm really excited to be moderating this panel this morning. As you can imagine, when someone gets an email that's like, oh, hey, would you like to moderate the BEA Editors? I was like, yes. Sign me up. The only kind of odd thing is that we were supposed to have someone bring a laptop with all the jacket images, and that person's not here, so we're just going to use our imaginations, you guys. As the nice tech guy said, well, these are readers. They can imagine what the jackets will look like. I was like, yes, they can. So we have, this panel's only 50 minutes long, and we have 5 amazing editors here tonight. Today, from your left to right, we have Sara Goodman from St. Martin's Press. Wendy Logia of Delacorte Press, Random House Children's Books. Emily Meehan, Disney Hyperion. Kate O'Sullivan, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Books for Young Readers. And Elise Howard, Algonquin Books for Young Readers. Sara comes first. Sara Goodman is an associate editor at St. Martin's Press, where she edits mostly young adult fiction and commercial women's fiction. She started her career as an agent at Ralph Vicinanza Limited, making the move to editorial in 2008. Her authors include Rainbow Rowell, Courtney Summers, Mary Jo Putney, Caroline Bach, Dream Jordan, Sarah Rayner, Sarah McCary, Stephanie Kine, and Ella Monroe. She will be presenting Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell.
Thank you. Here's the cover, if you guys can see it. Just thank you for having me here. So we editors can be kind of a whiny bunch. We like to sit around and complain a lot to each other, and one of the things that we love to complain about are the ones that got away, those projects that we wished we had gotten, but the stars just did not align. For me, it was this one that I got a lot of mileage out of, actually. It was a very witty romantic comedy about an IT snoop who falls in love with a woman after reading all of her emails, and it was called Attachments by a very a very talented young novelist, Rainbow Rowell. And I pined for this book. I mean, I would see it at bookstores and feel like I was running into an ex that I really, really loved, and I would sort of have to walk past it. Did I mention we're also really dramatic? So when Christopher Schelling, her agent, called me up saying, do you remember Rainbow? She's written this young adult novel, and I'd really like you to see it. I could barely contain the squeal in my voice. And I take the book home, and I'm expecting maybe Attachments, but set in high school, which would have been fabulous, by the way. But it's Eleanor and Park, so I feel like everybody should applaud. So I realized right away that there was something very, very precious in my hands, and that Rainbow had stitched pieces of her soul into it, basically, and that it must be mine, and it would be mine, and it became mine. And magic happened at St. Martin's Press with this book. The whole company read it. I had men and women of all ages coming to me saying that it was the best thing that they had read in years. The ARCs went out, and it went up on NetGalley, and the wonderful bloggers out there started sending out so much love, and then the starred reviews start coming through, and then we get this amazing love letter from John Green in the New York Times Book Review that I still can't read without crying. And it was just amazing. But before all this happens, back before the book's out, we're just finishing the editorial process, and we're sort of knee-deep in the onerous task of getting early blurbs, and we're setting the book up right. Christopher Schelling calls me again, and he says, Rainbow's finished with her next book already. And I'm thinking, my God, that's fast. He says, it's called Fangirl, and it's about fan fiction, and I couldn't love it more. So I take it home, and I read it that weekend, and I'm sitting in a coffee shop near my house where I like to read, and I sit there all day, and I finish it. I start it from beginning to end, and I'm sitting at this table in the back, covering my face because it's just tears rolling down my face, because she had done it again. She had written another masterpiece, and I was just overwhelmed by it. And I recently read it again in preparation for today, and was completely 100% absorbed, as though I had picked it up for the first time. It is young adult literature with a capital L. It's absolutely fabulous. It's layered and rich and gorgeous. So back up 3 months ago, it's February. You know, we're getting all of these accolades for Eleanor and Park. You know, the fan mail's rolling in, and it's just amazing. And I'm thinking to myself, they haven't even read Fangirl. I mean, this is incredible. So, Fangirl. I personally only have experience with being a woman, and I know that it's very, very difficult for boys too. I know that. But being a girl and being a teenage girl is very, very hard, and especially during that very tender age when you're entering college and everybody's on sort of a different page experience-wise, and you know, maybe you're super smart and super cool, but nobody really sees that except your family and your sort of inner circle. And maybe some crap has happened to you that has caused you to sort of isolate yourself and build up walls around you that, you know, the thought of tearing them down causes panic, basically. And so if you're that girl, if you were that girl, this book will change your life. And even if you aren't or weren't, this book will change your life, too. So Fangirl. There's a lot here in this book, but today I just want to focus on the 4 themes that mean the most to me, and they are family, fan fiction, love, and identity. Kath and Ren Avery are identical twins. At the age of 8, their mother decides she can't handle being a parent anymore, and she just takes off. And she leaves them in the care with their very kind, very loving, and very bipolar father. And you know, he's a wonderful man. He loves them, but he's fragile, and the girls have sort of had to raise themselves and be their own caretakers. And to cope with this unforgivable loss, Kath and Ren sink themselves, body and soul, into the world of Simon Snow. So, Simon Snow. I'm going to read to you from the handy Encyclowikia entry at the beginning of Fangirl. Simon Snow is a series of 7 fantasy books written by English philologist Gemma T. Leslie. The books tell the story of Simon Snow, an 11-year-old orphan from Lancashire who is recruited to attend the Watford School of Magics to become a magician. As he grows older, Simon joins a group of magicians, the Mages, who are fighting the insidious Humdrum, an evil being trying to rid the world of magic. Kath dives headfirst into the world of fandom, and she and Ren start a fan fiction account on fanfics.net and start writing under the name Magic Kath. And Kath is sort of the main writer, and Ren is certainly her co-writer. And you know, these girls are way into the fandom. I mean, they've got T-shirts, and their entire room is decorated, and Simon paraphernalia. I mean, and they're just super, super, super fans. So, I'm sorry. So, you know, Magic Kath, they start writing, and soon they're getting thousands and thousands of followers. I mean, Magic Kath is a huge his personality on the fan fiction sites. And she writes mostly about Simon and Baz. And now Baz is Simon's roommate and sworn enemy in the Gemma T. Leslie books. But in Kath's fiction, they're in love. And you'll see when you read the book that Kath has, you know, she has quite a tough shell around her, but her fiction that she writes is all about love. The chemistry that she builds between these 2 boys is just all passion and yearning. And you know, what's so cool about this novel, and you'll see when you read it, and what's so brilliant about it is that at the beginning of each chapter, you will get to read excerpts from the Simon Snow series. You will either read from the canon or you'll read from Kath's fiction. And it's a fully realized, intricately plotted book within the story. So Fangirl starts in the fall of their freshman year at college. And Ren has decided that she doesn't want to be Kath's roommate. And so Kath is sort of left on her own for the first time. And the first 2 people she meets are Reagan, her roommate, and who she assumes to be Reagan's boyfriend, Levi. And I just want to repeat his name again, Levi, because I think he might be my fictional, you know, soulmate, or I'm in love with him. At one point, Kath describes Levi's eyebrows as pornographic. He's tall and thin. He wears Carhartt. He drives a truck. He grew up on a ranch where he birthed calves. And he's good. He's so good. His heart is the size of this room. And he falls in love with Kath immediately. But she's too scared and too wrapped up in her own insecurities and in fan fiction, honestly, to notice. But soon he learns how to crack her code. He asks her to read him her fan fiction, saying she's like a tiger who loves Brahms. As long as you're reading, you let me touch you. And so this slow, beautiful seduction happens. And it's very innocent, it's just kissing and hand-holding, but it's so lovely and romantic. And she reads him the most important scenes from her fiction, which are the parts where Simon and Baz are sort of realizing how in love with each other they are. And so the two worlds sort of come together in this beautiful symphony. Kath thinks she's crazy and that she can't write her own story, that writing from her own world feels like falling off of a cliff, grasping at branches along the way down. But Kath is the sanest of us all. She's smart, and she doesn't suffer fools gladly. When she opens up to tell her own story, truth and beauty comes out. And at one point, one of Kath's writing professors tells her that the characters in her fiction practically evolve off of the page, and I would say that rainbows do the same. You don't want to leave the world that they live in, and you'll want to write the fan fiction about Fangirl because it's just that good. Thank
you. For those of you who came in late, we have no images, so I'm sorry. Imagine the book jackets. Next, we have Wendy Logia from Delacorte Press. Wendy's an executive editor at Delacorte. She has worked with some of the most talented authors writing for teens today, including Lauren Kate, Anne Brashears, Libba Bray, Sarah Mlanovsky, and Lissa Price, among others. She'll be presenting Tandem by Anna Jarzab.
Good morning, everyone. I do have an ARC here, so for some of you, you'll be able to see this gorgeous cover that we have for Tandem. Tandem is a book that will make you think. It will make teens question and wonder. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. It will make teens question and wonder about their own lives, which is really what the best fiction does. It's a sci-fi love story. It's complex, it's dark, it's romantic and smart. In the world of Tandem, everything repeats. You, your best friend, every person you know. There are many worlds and many lives with infinite possibilities. In Tandem, there's not just a universe, there's a multiverse. Think about it. Haven't we all wondered, at least I have, what our lives would be if we made a different choice along the way? How would your life be different? Something infinitesimally small, like deciding to get coffee at Starbucks, which leads to something amazing, like a tall, dark, handsome man in front of you ordering a decaf. Big things like college majors that lead to career choices, committing to a city or a block or purchasing a home, choosing friends and letting other people go, deciding to cut your hair into bangs. How many times has one choice harmed or hurt us or helped us? But imagine for a moment that it's not just about making choices. Instead, your life's path isn't a choice so much as an infinite stream of possibilities. Tandem takes the notion of being born into wealth or poverty, hardship or privilege, and pushes the idea further. What would it be like to live in a world that's like ours, yet different? You're you, but not exactly. You have thicker hair, longer legs, you speak 5 languages, you're never anxious or weak or frightened. Who would you be in this other universe? As you can see, my alternate universe selves that I imagine are always sort of improvements upon my regular Earth self. But why not? Isn't it fun to think of the tweaks that could be made in your life and in your world, and how those tweaks would become a ripple effect impacting everything about you? Who would you be in that world, and would you want to change your life for someone else's when that someone else is you, sort of? That's the dilemma facing Sasha Lawson in Tandem. 16-year-old Sasha grew up believing in tales of alternate universes that her physicist grandfather told her about in bedtime stories. Sasha lives in Chicago. She's leading a regular, ordinary life. Her parents died a decade ago, and she takes comfort in her grandfather's stories because she likes to imagine that perhaps in some other universe, her parents are still alive. Her life gets an unexpected twist when Grant, a very handsome, very popular boy in her high school, asks Sasha to the prom. Sasha is quite taken aback by this because Grant's never talked to her before. Of course, she says yes and goes to the prom with him and has a fantastic time. And it's after prom, when she and Grant are sitting on the shores of Lake Michigan, that Grant slips a silver bracelet onto her wrist. At first, she's excited. She thinks it's some sort of romantic gesture. But once the bracelet is clasped onto her wrist, Sasha blacks out. And when she wakes up, she's in anything but a romance. Instead, she's in a dank, dark basement with no idea where she is or what has happened to her. Sasha has been pulled from her safe Chicago hometown into a parallel universe that's in chaos. The boy that stands in front of Sasha in this basement, who looks exactly like Grant, isn't Grant at all. He's Thomas, Grant's analog, from one of the alternate universes straight out of her grandfather's bedtime stories. Analogs are replicas. They're not doubles, but close. And Sasha isn't in Chicago any longer, or at least the Chicago that she knew. She's in Aurora, having been brought through the Tandem into this parallel world. In this world, Thomas, who does look exactly like Grant, is a member of the King's Elite Service, and he's kidnapped Sasha for one reason. She is an analog to Princess Juliana, who has disappeared before a peace treaty with a nearby country was ratified. Here, Sasha learns, much to her dismay, that she's been brought here to fulfill a special mission. She has to take on the identity of Juliana, the kidnapped princess, who looks just like her. If she can successfully pull off this masquerade and impersonate Juliana without anyone detecting who she really is, Thomas promises that she'll be able to go back to her world, to her Chicago, her home. But if she fails, the consequences are deadly, and she'll be trapped in Aurora forever. There are many reasons why this book is special and why we were so excited to publish it and to bring it on at Random House. And here are just a few of those reasons. Terrific world building. Anna does an incredible job of creating this fully believable world, both the world that teens will relate to, Earth, the world they know, and this imaginative, detailed world like Earth, but not quite, called Aurora. Teens love series, where characters become friends and worlds are created that they can go back to over and over again. This project is the beginning of a series launch, so it's not just a multiverse, it's a multi-book project. The sequel, Tether, comes out in the spring, and we're also planning on several original digital stories that are part of this multiverse world. Another reason why this book is special is that the narrative is so thoughtful and thought-provoking. For me as an editor, I always respond to books that have a clear authorial vision. I love it when I know an author knows what she's writing and who she's writing it for. And I think the thread line of Anna's vision is carried through page by page and line by line. This book has layer upon layer of plot with romantic tension at its heart and a heroine who has to make a complicated choice, which is always something that I find appealing. Once Sasha agrees to masquerade as Juliana, she finds herself drawn to Thomas, not only because he looks like the hot guy from her hometown, but also because she discovers that he really is, he deeply cares about Juliana and the princess that she's pretending to be, and she finds that incredibly sexy. But of course, Thomas isn't the only boy with designs on her heart. We learn that Juliana had been promised, there was an arranged marriage that was set up, and if the real Juliana isn't found in time, Sasha's going to have to carry this marriage out. And of course, the boy that Juliana is betrothed to also happens to be quite charming and sensitive. So as time runs out, Sasha is in that place that I love to read about, a place where a heroine is drawn between two boys, drawn between two important choices, and drawn here between two worlds. Another reason that this book is so special is that it has multiple points of view, and multiple points of view are really hard for an author to carry off well, and it does it deftly and with precision. We're immediately immersed in Sasha's first-person point of view, but we also get the chance to dip inside Thomas and Juliana's third-person points of view. And those points of view have a number of unexpected twists and turns that really keep things moving along. Anna Jarzab is the author of 2 previous novels with us that I hope you've read, All Unquiet Things, of which PW said, Jarzab's confident literary prose makes for a tense and immersive thriller, and a book called The Opposite of Hallelujah, which received glowing praise, including a starred book list review. With Tandem, we really see this as a breakout moment for Anna, and while it's too early for trade reviews, we've received some wonderful reviews from some amazing writers, including Marie Lu, who says, a fascinating world of parallel universes, sexy doppelgangers, and breathtaking action, a fun and addictive read. And Ali Condi, who I believe was a BuzzPanel pick herself a few years ago for Matched, who says, clever and exhilarating. Each page is a pleasure. I love the romance and adventure of Sasha's story, and I can't wait for the sequel. We're really proud to be publishing this book and getting people talking about Tandem amongst these other books, which of course are all wildly different, is just so exciting for us as a publisher, and I know for Anna as a writer. Anna is sitting over there. If Anna, you want to give a wave so everyone can see you. Yes. And I just wanted to conclude by saying I hope you're able to come and hear Anna tomorrow. She's going to be on the YA Author Buzz event at the Uptown Stage at 10 a.m., where she'll be talking about Tandem from a different point of view, not the editorial point of view, of course, the author's point of view. And she'll also be signing ARCs of Tandem tomorrow afternoon at 2:30 in the Random House booth.
Emily Meehan is editorial director at Disney Hyperion. She's responsible for the shaping of the overall Disney Hyperion YA list and the creation of new IP, as well as her own list of YA and middle grade books. Her list includes the Beta series by Rachel Cohn, the Darkest Mind series by Alexandra Bracken, and the At Somerton series by Leela Rashid, among many others. She began her career at Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers, where over the course of her 10 years there, she developed and acquired best-selling books and series such as the Hush Hush Saga by Becca Fitzpatrick, the Summer Trilogy by Jenny Han, and the Private series and its spin-off, the Privilege series, both by Kate Bryan. Emily will be presenting All Our Yesterdays by Cristin Terrill.
So the story of how this book came to be at Disney Hyperion is a little bit like a publisher thriller in and of itself, at least for us. So when I started at Disney Hyperion, I was given the tremendous opportunity to start a list from scratch and sort of fill it with all of the books that, you know, I thought I would love to have read as a teenager. And so that opportunity was just amazing to me, but also terrifying. And what makes that terrifying is agents. And you all know who you are. So when All Our Yesterdays came in, I knew I wanted it, and I knew I had to have it. And the emotional things that Sara talked about went down. There was a lot of squealing and whining, and of course it was all internal. None was done to Diana Fox, her agent. And I plotted and said, should I just take it to acquisitions, or should I tell her I love it, and just offer bomber, and you know. So what happened was Diana called me and said, you know, I really love for Cristin to talk to the editors who are interested. So it all came down to a phone call. And just so we're all clear, this is where I epically fail every time. I've been in a couple editor face-offs before this, and they didn't go so well. So anyway, long story short, she picked me. And if you want to know why, you'll have to ask her. But the inflection is important. Don't say, why'd you pick her? But it all came down to the fact that we ended up with a really great team. And I think that is so important in this whole process, because the reading experience is so subjective, and sort of the connection that you make to a book is so subjective. So now I need to explain the book, and I hope that I do that without giving away any spoilers. So hopefully Cristin and Diana can kind of buzz me if I make a mistake. So imagine yourself as your 20-year-old self, and you have the chance to go back to this 16-year-old you and talk to her, and maybe say some things that maybe make her change some things. In my case, I would probably say to myself, it doesn't matter that you were cast as the Mother Abbess and not Maria. Study harder so you get into a better college, and dump your redneck boyfriend, please. So imagine that scenario, but the stakes are exponentially higher. All Our Yesterdays begins with M, and she's locked in a cell by herself, and next to her is a boy who she finds great comfort in, and it's clear that they're in love. There's also a drain in her cell that she is completely preoccupied with, and she doesn't know why, but she just feels like she's got to get into that drain. And so she finds a way into the drain using a plastic spoon that's delivered with her food tray. And what she finds when she opens the drain is a list of commands, all written in her handwriting that she has no recollection of writing, and they're crossed out one by one. And the last command is, you have to kill him. We're then introduced to two men called the doctor and the director. And it becomes clear that they represent this totalitarian government that has taken over America. And basically the ultimate goal is to protect Cassandra, the marvel of modern science, a particle collider that has made time travel possible. And it's very clear that these two characters are prisoners, and the only comfort they have is in each other. And they talk to each other constantly through this foot of concrete that separates them, as they are starved and beaten for information that they both refuse to give. Then we move to 4 years earlier, and we meet Marina, who is the poor rich girl who seems to have it all. But she's emotionally starved. Her parents are largely absent, and she has this sort of deep, abiding sense of self-loathing. And we meet her neighbor, James, who's a science prodigy from a political background. And he's just very swoony. But also he's scarred from a traumatic tragedy that befell his family at a young age. So Marina kind of pours all of this loneliness that she has into this love of James that almost borders on irrational. And when James befriends this new guy named Finn, Marina can't stand him. He's funnier than she is. He has this spirit that is just annoying. And so she's kind of dealing with that and the jealousy that comes with that. And all the while she's trying to work up her courage to kind of tell James her true feelings for him. But then something catastrophic happens. And we come to realize that the you have to kill him is the call to action that sets into motion a turn of events that forces these characters to confront each other. And that's when the plotting of this book just gets out of control and really hard to keep track of as an editor. So I wish that I could take credit for helping to craft this manuscript into the amazing genius that it is, but I really can't. when I read it to do my editorial letter, I basically didn't want to touch any of the amazing pacing and plotting that Cristin had done. And I really wanted to focus on why I bought the book, which was the emotional relationships between these characters and the taut kind of lines that that connected them. And so that's what I did. And when I sent my letter to Cristin, she said, "Great, thanks. Where's the 24-page editorial letter that I've been, having nightmares about?" And I said, "Not for you, not this time." But she did just deliver book 2, so there's always hope for that. So Cristin has this I was talking to Diana about this panel before and telling her how nervous I was. And, we talked about the sort of deceptive simplicity of Cristin's writing. And that's something that I felt like, I wanted to really preserve in this whole process and just sort of bring out, the parts of the book that I thought are amazing. And I think the most amazing relationship in this book is the one between Em and Marina. And that's why I was so happy when Publishers Weekly in its starred review said, "The believable, complex relationships among the 3 characters of each respective time and in the blended area of shared time add a surprise. A plot ostensibly about assassination is rooted firmly in different shades of love. Perhaps richest is the affection Em feels for Marina, a standout compared to the truckloads of books about girls who only learn to appreciate themselves through their love interest's eyes." So the brilliant pitch for this book was Terminator meets Time Traveler's Wife, which is great for Hollywood, but 1, I've never seen Terminator, and 2, it's not so great for coming up with a book cover, because so because this book is so, and I actually kind of imagined that the book cover would be up here, but because this book is so many things, a love story, a thriller, it's science fiction, we had a lot of fun coming up with a cover that matched the book. And what I realized through that process is I kind of had a vision. I knew what I wanted this book cover to look like. And that vision was shared by some and not by others. So we had this moment in our cover concept meeting where we were actually like yelling at each other, "It's a thriller!" And I was like, "It's a love story!" And it was just but the thing was, everybody felt so passionately about it. And the one thing that I realized is like a lot of and this is just an interesting, I think, comment on sort of how we come up with packaging as a whole. But I think, some of the guys in the room said, "I would pick up this cover. I wouldn't pick up this cover." And so we really I feel like this book is a book that is appealing to both boys and girls. So we definitely went in that direction for the cover. So that's really the story of how this book was born. And I just feel immeasurably lucky to have been a part of it. And now I think you guys are the lucky ones who will read it and then have to reread it to figure out the paradoxes. So thanks for listening, and I hope you love all our yesterdays.
Kate O'Sullivan is an executive editor for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Books for Young Readers, where she edits picture books, nonfiction, middle grade, and YA novels. Her tastes range from emotive picture books to convincing historical fiction to voice-driven YA. Kate's list of award-winning and best-selling authors and illustrators includes Brian Lees, Renata Luska, Peter Reynolds, Cy Montgomery, and Barbara McClintock, Deborah Underwood, and Robin Lefevers, among others. She lives just 2 blocks away from the excellent Porter Square Books in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Kate will be presenting Entangled by Amy Rose Capetta.
everyone hear me okay? I'm so happy to be here today in the company of such great books and their editor advocates. And being able to talk about this next book, Entangled, is even more special because it was just at last year's BEA that I first heard about it. I was meeting with agent Sara Crow, and while we were talking about her latest projects, I couldn't help but notice how excited she was about this debut by a recent Vermont College of Fine Arts graduate. Sara said if the TV show Firefly were a YA novel, it'd be Entangled. As a brown coat myself, that's all I needed to hear. I told Sara I had to read the manuscript. About 6 weeks and an auction later, Entangled was safely on Houghton's list, and I haven't stopped smiling about it since. For fellow Firefly fans out there, you'll know that this means that Entangled is sci-fi. And that should be good news, because while your bookshelves may still be groaning with dystopian novels and paranormal fantasies, YA continues to mutate into various subgenres, and the marketplace seems to have a bigger embrace these days. And if my conversations with editors and agents are any indication, this means, and as witnessed by today's panel, there's a renewed interest and ascendance in sci-fi, or off-planet sci-fi, and that's exactly what we have with Entangled. Doesn't hurt that recent movie releases such as Into Darkness, Oblivion, and After Earth are keeping sci-fi in the spotlight. But more important than any genre is the actual writing. And I'm happy to say what Amy Rose has on offer is dazzling prose that is seasoned, expert, and incredibly exciting to read. In fact, the last time I felt this excited about a novel was Grave Mercy by Robin Lefevers, so hopefully that's a good sign. So what's it all about? Imagine you are all alone in the universe, only to discover you are utterly bound to someone you've never met. That's the premise. Entangled is set in the far future, year 3129, and it centers on 17-year-old Cade, a tough rocker girl on a desolate planet whose only companion is a cherry red guitar. Cade's day-to-day is pretty lonely, but that's the way she likes it. Then, after a night playing music in a seedy bar, a man in a lab coat crashes her show and illuminates her mysterious past. He informs her that she's quantum entangled, created as a lab tubie, and then entangled on a subatomic level with a boy named Zan. And Cade's life as a solo act is over. Cade grabs her ticket off planet Undana like a brass ring and takes off on an adventure that spans across space to save Zan. While Cade's mental bond to Zan grows stronger, her travels and music unite her with a crew of outlaws, Cade's very first friends. She agrees to help them with their dangerous pro-human trade in return for passage to the black hole field where Zan is being held. By the time she faces his captors, Cade has discovered that her entanglement could change the fate of every human in space, and that her musical talents are part of the antidote. Cade's gone from being the least connected girl in the universe to the most in 2 weeks flat. Now all she needs is Zan, but once Cade rescues him, it's clear that he has his own plans. So in the end, Cade has to choose between the boy she was meant to save and the people she's come to love. So there you have the broad strokes. But again, what I want to come back to is the writing, because what this synopsis doesn't tell you is how beautifully crafted this adventure is. Amy Rose embroiders her writing with surprising turns of phrase that make you linger on sentences while still wanting to blaze ahead with the action all at the same time. Her writing is muscular, sharp, and vibrant. It really reads like a song. She also introduces a host of characters, some human, some not, including a crackerjack pilot who is teetering on the edge of insanity from Space Sick, a mysterious, gravity-bending character named Gory, who seems to have it out for Cade, and the spherical and furry Rena, who will give the Millennium Falcon and the Enterprise a run for the money as the most loved spacecraft. All of these characters move within the territory that Amy Rose creates with her sparkling prose, and as her writing celebrates the universal beauty and importance of music, it feels musical itself. I should also note that as in any good story, our hero has sinister forces that she has to push back against. But one of the many great things about Entangled is that the villains are nuanced and gray with their own complex motivations. As for the quantum physics aspects of the story, don't let it scare you off. As someone with a less than robust relationship with math and science, even I was able to enjoy these pieces of the narrative without feeling at all overwhelmed. The way that Amy Rose has arrived at and worked this theory into the narrative is genius. It started with a conversation, with one of her best friends, who also happens to be a scientist. Her friend explained that when particles become entangled, they can be separated by huge distances, but still exchange information faster than the speed of light. This radical, universe-changing form of connection ignited Amy Rose's imagination, and she thought to apply the theory to people instead of particles. Suddenly, her protagonist, who denies all human connection and prefers to be alone, is entangled with a boy across the universe, and things suddenly get very interesting. However, I really don't think readers will focus too much on the mechanics of quantum physics or entanglement, and it should be noted that Amy Rose uses this concept in a fictionalized way, and it is not meant to be a literal interpretation of the facts as we currently know them. The important thing, and what will stay with readers most, is that although this is an intergalactic space adventure that takes us out among the stars, at its very root, Entangled is about the human desire for connection. The story will challenge readers to consider the impact of making choices based on fear versus hope, and how our biggest choice can come down to how much are we willing to risk to connect, how that is what matters most. Entangled has a wide reach, appealing to readers 14 and up who are sci-fi and fantasy fans, musicians and music lovers, anyone who has ever felt like an outsider, self-proclaimed nerds and outlaws, anyone who likes a good adventure, and romantics of all types. And while Entangled is utterly original, it pays tribute to some sci-fi fantasy greats, yielding multiple opportunities for you to connect it to a variety of readers. Because I do think that Entangled will appeal to teens and adults. For example, if you have adult readers who are fans of Blade Runner, Snow Crash, or Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you could introduce them to Entangled. Younger readers who are fans of Partials, Across the Universe, or Divergent should welcome Entangled to their shelves. I also see Cade as a third point in a girl power trifecta that includes Katniss and Katza. After all, Cade's a pretty badass heroine, and she's even bigger, stronger, taller than her Hunger Games and Graceland counterparts. And of course, if you have a customer who's a fan of Joss Whedon, you could probably just say, my work here is done, hand them Entangled, and send them on their way. I'm not done. I just wanted to close by saying that I'm so happy that we're following up Entangled with its sequel, Unmade, in fall 2014. I don't want to give too much away, so I'll only say that while Entangled is about girls, guitars, and quantum physics, Unmade is about love, death, and lyrics. That's to say that in Unmade, the scale is even larger and the stakes are even higher. While I haven't yet read the full manuscript, Amy Rose tells me that in Unmade, Cade sings for the first time, and pretty much everyone falls in love and or dies, which is how all the best stories end. And so I hope you'll all look forward to Amy Rose's follow-up to her shiny debut as much as I am.
Elise Howard joined Algonquin Books as editor and publisher of Algonquin Young Readers in November 2011. Elise was previously Senior VP and Associate Publisher at HarperCollins Children's Books, where she primarily provided editorial oversight for the Harper Teen and Harper Imprint fiction programs. In addition to her program management, list development, and acquisitions responsibilities, Elise also edited many books on the Harper list, among them titles by Avi, Lynn Reed Banks, Chris Lynch, Rachel Vale, Will Hobbs, Ben Michelson, and Neil Gaiman, including the Newbery Medal winner, The Graveyard Book. Before joining Harper, Elise headed Avon Books for Young Readers program, where she launched the first trade paperback imprint exclusively for teen readers, Avon Tempest. She started her publishing career as a book packager, creating and editing YA and adult fiction series and a handful of practical nonfiction titles for adult readers. Elise will be presenting If You Could Be Mine by Sara Farizan.
So many people are aware that in Iran, it's a crime to be gay. In fact, it's a crime that is sometimes punishable by death. What they're usually a little shocked to find out, though, is that gender reassignment is not only legal, it's supported by the state medical system. I'm not sure why. Some people think that it's maybe regarded as a sort of a cure for homosexuality or fixing God's mistake, but it's a fact. In fact, it was made so by a fatwa in the 1980s. So Seher, the heroine of If You Could Be Mine, Sara Farizan's startling, funny, wise, heartbreaking debut novel, has been in love with her best friend, also a girl, since they were 6 years old. When the girls are 17, Nasreen's parents announce that they've arranged for their daughter's marriage. Now, Nasreen is a wonderfully complicated character. We're never quite sure whether she's as invested in and committed to the relationship as Seher is. She's a beautiful girl, she's a little bit of a pampered princess, and while she could never in Iran be alone with a boy who could kiss her and hug her and tell her how beautiful and wonderful she is, it's quite easy for Nasreen and Seher to be together. Seher, at some point in the novel, she can't help being her smart and witty and wonderful self in spite of the crushing burden of her secrets, and she observes somewhere, there's nothing like a headscarf to hide a hickey. So, when the marriage is announced, Nasreen says in effect to Seher, it's no big deal. Things are going to be exactly as they always have been, but it'll be even better. Reza's a doctor, Nasreen's fiance is a doctor, and he'll go off to work every day, but he'll provide her with this lovely house, and the girls can go on as they always have. Seher thinks this is outrageous. First of all, it's ridiculous, she says, that this phony, arranged relationship is going to be celebrated and feted and put on display for the world to see, while their true love has to be hidden. And second of all, she is not interested in sharing Nasreen with anyone, especially not Reza, who only annoys her all the more for being a nice, decent man who is seemingly actually in love with Nasreen. So Seher commits herself to finding a way to save the girls' relationship. And while she's thinking about the possibilities, she thinks about the party that her cousin Ali invited her to in an effort to cheer her up when the news was announced. Ali is gay, and he's never really gone to particular pains to hide that fact. It's possible, that he couldn't, no matter how much he tried. So Seher remembers as a girl simply being told never to talk about it, and that's the only discussion that has ever taken place. At this party that Ali throws, Seher meets all sorts of members of Tehran's gay and transgendered demi-monde, including a girl named Parveen, who it turns out began life as a boy named Ahmed. And with that, Seher thinks maybe she's found the secret to keeping her relationship with Nasreen together. So that's quite a hook. But that's not the only thing that drew me to this wonderful novel. In If You Could Be Mine, Sara Farizan shows herself to be a writer of sympathy as well as one of great observational powers. She shows us how the sophisticated, educated people of Tehran live, sometimes breaking the rules, sometimes following the rules, going to school, to parties, being interested in music and fashion, just like the rest of us are. And I think this is a very different picture of Tehran and Iran from the one that many of us have, where we're thinking constantly that this is, this theocracy where people are thinking and talking about Iran's political situation the way we are every day. Sara also creates an amazing cast of secondary characters, including Seher's broken, sad, widowed father, Ali, whose own sexuality has just by its very fact pushed him to a life on the dangerous edge of the law, the community of transgendered people Seher encounters, and her girlfriend Nasreen's own very complicated family. There's this lovely little subplot about Nasreen's brother Dariush, who is basically a lost soul simply because his own marriage proposal was rejected. My favorite scene in the book, and this may feel like a small spoiler to you, but after all, this is realistic fiction that takes place in present-day Iran. So my favorite scene involves the conversation that Nasreen's mother has with Seher on the way to the wedding. She's been cold and imperious and seemingly oblivious to Seher's feelings throughout the novel. And Seher has grown to eye her a little bit contemptuously. So they're riding alone in the car to the wedding, and Nasreen's mother's first words to Seher are, "It's over now." So after taking in her words, Seher asks her how she knew, and Nasreen's mother explains. Her own marriage was arranged, and it's been really successful in its way. She has a lovely home. She has these 3 kids, but it's been more successful than loving. She tells Seher that she's seen the way Nesreen has looked at Seher, and she's sometimes envied that look so much. Just once in her life, she would have liked for someone to look at her that same way. But she knows that if she's seen those looks, others have seen them too, and that puts Nesreen and Seher in terrible danger. And so she's arranged the marriage of her 17-year-old daughter to this 30-something doctor to save her, to do what she has to do, and not incidentally to protect Seher as well. So Sara is gay, and she's out, and she's blessed with incredibly supportive parents who themselves emigrated to this country from Iran. But as the daughter of immigrants, she's often thought about how different life would be, all of their lives would be, if they had never left Iran, and that was the root of this novel. Sara visited family in Iran several times as a girl, and she also traveled back to Iran to research this story. The topicality of it, of course, should lead to really strong crossover interest. But I want you all to understand so much that this is the universal story of being in love with somebody that you can't be with, that your parents, that authorities, that the whole world is telling you is wrong for you, and you know it's right, but you also know the world is never going to give you the chance to explore that. And I think that's a really powerful message with broad appeal for teens of all sorts. Of course, it goes without saying, I suppose, that this answers the call for ethnically diverse protagonists in YA literature, something I'm very happy to have on this list. And also another call, which is for non-coming out LGBTQ stories. That's something I hear a lot from librarians and from independent booksellers and readers. And so I'm really happy that in addition to the culturally specific message, there's that message that there is an important difference between being gay and being transgendered. This story directly addresses the idea that this surgery might seem to some people to fix gay people, but that Seher is, like many, many gay people, comfortable in her own body, attracted to members of her own sex. Sara Farizan first charmed booksellers at the Winter Institute in Kansas City. She's got a full dance card for this coming publication season, including lots of bookstore visits. She'll make an appearance at IBI, at NCTE, and at the Austin Teen Book Festival. And before you leave this convention, you'll have many chances to meet her. Besides the author stage tomorrow, she's participating in teen author speed dating. She's a featured Fall 13 YA debut author. And right after this event, Algonquin Marketing Director Eileen Lawrence and I and Sara will be talking about the journey of a young adult book from writer to reader. That's at 11 next door. And along with some other Algonquin young readers, authors, Sara will be signing in the Algonquin booth, which is number 839 tomorrow from 2 to 4. And she's here, so I just hope, stand up and say hello. Thank you.
What a great session. I just want to repeat the 5 titles because I know we didn't have images on the screen today. Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, Tandem by Anna Jarzab, All Our Yesterdays by Cristin Terrill, Entangled by Amy Rose Capetta, and If You Could Be Mine by Sara Farizan. Thank you all so much and enjoy BEA.